Right, hello folks. I'm back with a video I wasn't expecting to be making for quite a few months. The other day I got an email letting me know that a grant that submitted an application to receive some funding to do some research was accepted, and yeah, that started off this little video series I'm starting now. I submitted a funding grant to the Norfolk and Norwich Archaeological Society, and they very generously accepted. And as a result, this is why I'm making these videos. So, as part of the grant application, I put forward the idea that I will document my process of research and use this as a form of kind of like tutorial to allow others to get involved with research in the home forces in the UK. So this little kind of video set of tutorials I'll be producing has been very gratefully funded, supported by funding from Norfolk and Norwich Archaeological Society. So do check out their website, and if you have got any ideas, if you're in Norfolk or doing any research in that particular area, then I do recommend putting forward a grant application to see if you can get some money to fund your research. So, what I thought I would do is start by just outlining some of the things that you can do to get started with researching the Home Force if you are interested. So let's start with the first things first. Right, I'm going to be brutally honest here. There is no easy way to research the Home Forces. Simple as that. There's no point me trying to make out that it's all really easy and straightforward to do. It isn't. This is mainly because very few people have actually researched the Home Forces in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, and especially at the local level, the Home Forces have rarely been researched. So there are very few sources of information at a county and sub-county level, which you can simply pick up and have a look at and learn about the home forces. So in most cases, if you do decide to take on research of the home forces, you will be entering uncharted territory in terms of the information you'll find. So as I've already mentioned as well, you'll be doing something that very few people have actually done, which is quite surprising in the 80 years since the Second World War ended, that very few people have actually done any research into the home forces. And count on pretty much one hand how many people have. And because of this, there's no way of predicting what information or how much information you will find, which is something that I've come across in my research into the defence of East Yorkshire. So, one example is I was keen to find information about the Royal Engineer units for East Yorkshire, who would have built the defences and um, camps and things like that to support the Home Forces of Northern Command in the East Yorkshire area. And from one of the war diaries that I had for East Anglia, there was a vast amount of information in that war diary relating to the construction of pillboxes and anti-invasion defences. So I thought, right, if I get the Royal Engineer war diaries for East Yorkshire, they'll provide me with a wealth of information. When I got the war diaries, uh, they were actually very poor. There's very little information, unfortunately, in the war diaries for East Yorkshire. There was, out of about 6 war diaries for the Royal Engineer Field Company units, only one of them actually provided any useful information, and most of that information related to the area of North Yorkshire outside of East Yorkshire, so it wasn't really of any use. But in terms of what you expect to find, the whole process can be swings and roundabouts. You might aim to find some information in the war diary and then find that there's either very little information, or not expect to find any information in the war diary and have the opposite, where you find so much information that you are kind of overwhelmed. Um, so yeah, it's just worth being aware that if you are wanting to do this, you will have to source original period documents. You can't just go out to your local archives and find all the information there. You have to go and trawl this information elsewhere, which is something I'll be covering in a future video. But kind of on the positive side, the benefits are that you can help write the story of the Home Forces for your local area. By doing so, you'll be one of very, very few people, a small band of people who have actually researched the Home Forces. Like I say, very few people take any focus on the Home Forces. Pretty much everything focuses solely on the Home Guard, and and it's worth noting why the Home Forces have rarely been researched. Um, So yeah, and also the power of local study has been greatly demonstrated by people like Peter Hibbs, for example, who has built up an extensive insight into the defence of East Sussex. And this is, this is just one example of only a handful, but I do recommend checking out Pete's Defence of East Sussex website, so you can get an idea of how much information you can glean from these records and the kind of picture you can build up. It's that's pretty much the primary example of how to research the home forces in a given area, and something that's inspired me over the years. So yeah, check that out. I'll put a link in the description below. So one of the first starting points for starting your research that I found particularly useful is to define an area. So I've got a fair bit of experience of the archaeology side of things, doing research, and in terms of East Yorkshire, I decided to do the entire county, which is quite a big job, and it's something that's going to take me a very long time, but I was completely aware of this. So if you are just starting out, if you're very new to historical research and things like that, and especially with the home forces, there's no easy source of information, like I've already said. You're going to have to start from scratch with this. It's best to start a small area, which is one of the reasons why I put in this funding request to the NNAS, was to research a very small area, as we'll see in a bit. So it's always best to choose a small area, like a town, potentially village. I think aiming for a town is probably a better idea, but don't try and start off with an entire county if you're just starting out. So yeah, set yourself a very specific area to look at and stick to that area. What you can always do is start small and work big. It's easier than trying to work big and then work it down to working small. So yeah, choose a very defined area to start with. What next? Start by defining some aims and objectives. So with this stuff, if you're not guided in what you're going to be doing, it's very easy to go off on tangents constantly and do other things. Be focused. So one of the easiest way to do this, which I kind of noticed from doing this grant application to the NNAS, was to start with just a very simple overview of what you want to achieve. And I did this, this is the paragraph that I submitted to the NNAS for my grant application, and it's literally just a couple of sentences saying, the aim of the project is to research the function and extent of Thetford's Second World War defences. So I'm looking at the nodal point defences of Thetford in the Second World War. And the reason for doing this is that because the town is now synonymous with Dad's army. However, the defence of the town during the war wasn't solely the responsibility of the Home Guard. So the Territorial and Regular Army units had a very key function in defending the town. In particular, these two divisions here, which I'll be focusing on later in this series, they were the main units responsible for defence. Although this role is largely forgotten today in light of the Home Guard. So that was my general rationale for. And my general aim to present this research project to the NNAS. So that outlines everything I want to do in a very simple, catchy, simple to understand format. Next step is to break this down into objectives. So here are my objectives that I submitted for this little project I'm doing. And, yours don't have to be the same as this. You can kind of copy and paste some of these if you really want to. But this, based on my experience, this is what I'm kind of comfortable with doing and what I want to get out of doing this little research project. So the first thing I want to do is identify documentary records held in the National Archives that relate to the defence of Thetford during the Second World War. National Archives, note that. I'll be coming back to that later. This is a key point. Next step, I want to analyse and assess these documents. So one of the things you see quite often with this research is that people will source these documents and then they just look at them and don't actually do any analysis of the documents. Key thing here is to get the documents and then analyse them to build up a picture of the town's defences. And also another side project to this is to identify currently unrecorded defences. I also then want to build up an order of battle or a roster of the units for the regular and territorial army that defended Thetford and the surrounding area, as well as a chronology of their deployment. So this is the key thing here, is to build up essentially a list of the units from the regular and territorial army units, so the 18th and 52nd divisions that defended the town, and build up a chronology of when specific units defended the town, for example. Also alongside this order of battle is to obviously incorporate the Home Guard, as well, as they would have been a key part of the town's defence, but put them into context, into their actual historical context, is another objective of this. Next, I want to assess and determine defensive measures taken to defend the town. So key thing that you find in the documents that you need to analyse and assess are the things like standing orders, which give you an insight into how the defence of the town would have been undertaken. So yeah, as I mentioned here, standing orders are very key to understanding this. So you could just build up an order of battle if you really wanted, but key to understanding the defences that we're going to identify is to analyse the documentary evidence, to look at the plans that were in place to defend the town, and the plans that were in place to counter invasion if it came. Another thing that's key to this, or key to anything that you do, is having an output. So you don't want to just do this research and then just sit on it. You want to have some form of output. This can be anything from a presentation. So one of the things I want to do is do a presentation, or do a series of presentations for local archaeology and history groups. Also produce a report to be published via the NNAS. And also, one of my key aims as an archaeologist is to create a data set of lost and surviving defences in the town for accession to Norfolk Historic Environment Service for inclusion in the Historic Environment Record. So then this information then will not only help inform the planning process for the town to make sure that the town's surviving defences are retained and their significance is shown, but also to ensure that my data is archived and retained in perpetuity. So NHES, along with every historic environment record in the country, has a key role to ensure that the data that they curate is preserved forever. So if you post something on the internet and that's it, that information can be very easily lost, especially when you look at like the way websites become obsolete or end up behind paywalls. So publishing information online and solely online via ad hoc websites is by no means a way of ensuring information is preserved forever, and it can easily be lost. So by ensuring that your information is properly archived through your research projects, you can ensure that your information is available forever for future generations and can be used by people in the future. So key thing. And then finally, where possible, to produce interpretive materials and or reports. So yeah, I'll be producing a report on my research. One of my outcomes as well is obviously these videos that I'm making. So I want to aim to enable other people to be able to conduct their own research. That's one of my outcomes. And the aim of these interpretive materials is to provide a better understanding of the role of the regular and territorial army in defence of Norfolk, and also start to break down some of the mythology surrounding the role of the Home Guard. So like I say, one of my personal aims is to ensure that the role of the regular and territorial army in defence of the UK during the Second World War is adequately acknowledged, and the role of the Home Guard isn't overstated. One of my aims in doing this is to ensure that we see the actual history and not something based on a 1970s TV programme, for example. So hopefully that gives you some ideas of where to start and how to start. Like I say, start by defining a specific research area, set some basic aims and objectives, and then next you can then start to consider where to find information. And that's something we'll cover in my next video, which I'll put out in the next couple of weeks. So hopefully you found that interesting. Like I say, thank you so much to the Norwich and Norfolk Archaeological Society for providing me with the funds to make these videos. Yeah, watch this space, and if you have any suggestions for tutorial videos or things that you'd like covered in the future, let me know and I'll aim to address that. So thank you. I've been Chris. See you later.